Okay, this is going to be a pre-calc lesson. I'm going to talk about interval notation. I'm also going to talk about how to find domain range and function given points, and also talk a little bit about evaluating a piecewise. There's another video on evaluating functions in general. Okay, so let's start with interval notation. Let's start out with some couple simple concepts. Okay, if I had a number line, let's just make these 15 and 13. Okay, all right. So you've seen this in Algebra 1, where you saw a filled-in circle, okay, and you saw this shading like this, okay? And what you would do in Algebra 1 is you would say, okay, that's going to be x is greater than or equal to 13, okay? Now, what we want to talk about is the concept of interval notation, okay? We're going to talk about the concept of interval notation. Now, here's the first thing. If you have an open, you will have an open circle, okay, all right, an open circle, or, and we'll talk about this in a second, an infinity symbol, both positive and negative, will lead to a curved bracket, okay? A filled-in circle, all right, is going to be a squared bracket, and I'll explain the brackets in a second. So the concept here is, since this 13 has a filled-in circle, okay, what I want to do is I'm going to put a 13 here. This is going to be our smallest, okay, number. It's 13. Now, when it's going this way, what this means is it's going on forever, and this is the positive direction, and this would be considered the negative direction. So this is going on forever into positive infinity. So what I would do is I would do comma, positive infinity, and since it's infinity, I'm going to make a curved bracket. So that's what that would look like. Okay? Let's say I had something like this. Okay? Very simply, okay? All right, this is going on forever in the negative direction, or the negative infinity. Okay, so if you have trouble with the concept of infinity, think of negative infinity like negative 100. That would be the smallest number. So of this set, I would have negative infinity. And the biggest one, I would have 15. Now, since that is an open circle, I would have something that looked like that. Okay? Let's do a couple of more examples. Okay? All right. Let's say I had this. Let's say this is 4. Okay? Once again, this would be considered negative infinity. And that would be 4. And I would put a squared bracket at 4, okay? Another one would be, let's say I had an open at, let's say negative 2, and it was shaded like this, okay? So then what would happen here is this is going on in the positive direction, so that's infinity, okay? So the smaller of these two is negative 2. This is a curved bracket. And the biggest is infinity, okay? All right, 2 more examples before I give you a couple to do. All right, let's say I had something like this. Square, open, 4 and 8. Let's say I had this one was just open, open, negative 5 and 7. Okay? So let's say this was shaded here. Let's say this was shaded here. Okay? So what this would be, smaller of these two numbers is 4. It is a closed bracket because it's got a closed circle. This would be 8, which would have an open circle and a curved bracket. These, the smallest number is negative 5 since it's open. And then this would be 7. This would also be open because it is a circle of that type. Okay? A couple more examples, and then I'm going to give you guys some to try on your own. Okay? All right, let's say, and as I'm going through, if I'm going too fast, just pause it. Okay? If I'm going too fast, just pause it. All right? Let's say I have, let's say this is 6, and this is 11. Let's say I have open. Let's say I have closed. Okay. Negative 3 and 2. Okay. Let's look at these. All right. Now, what you want to do is you want to break these up in parts. So for this one, this would be considered negative infinity. The smallest of the two would be negative infinity. okay, curved bracket. It goes to 6, also curved bracket because it's open. This would be, I would label this positive infinity and 11. So 11, positive infinity. Okay, now you put a little u in here, and that means union. It means we're going to put those two together, and that's what that would look like. This would be negative infinity. This would be positive infinity. We'll talk about labeling arrows in another lesson. Okay, so then this smallest one would be negative infinity. The biggest part of this would be negative 3 with a closed bracket. This would be 2 with a closed bracket. And then that would be positive infinity with a little U shape there. Okay? So what I would like you to do, when I write the word try, these are the ones you're going to do on your own. Okay? You're going to do these on your own, and then what I'm going to do, you're going to pause the video. Okay? You're going to pause the video, do them on your own, and then you can check the answers in the video. Okay? All right, so let's say, let's go 3, open this way. Let's say negative 9 this way. Let's say 2 and 19. And it's like this. And then let's say 1 and 6. Okay, make sure you can see that. Yeah, you can see that good. Okay. All right, let's make this way and this way. Okay. And so all I want you to do is write the interval notation. Okay. So take a second, pause the video, get your answers, and come back. Okay. Now, what this one would be, this would be positive infinity. This would be 3. Open circle on 3, so it's curved bracket, infinity, curved bracket. This one, this would be negative infinity because it's the left arrow, negative infinity to negative 9. I'd have a square bracket because that's filled in. This is a little section from 2 to 9, 2 to 19, open. Okay, this one, I would have to label this negative infinity. This is positive. So this is negative infinity to negative 1, open, union with this one, which would be 6, close bracket, infinity. Okay? That's interval notation. All right? The next thing is something you should have learned in Algebra 1, the concept of domain, range, function. Okay, we're just going to talk about that in this lesson as a series of points. We're going to get into it the next lesson with functions, okay, or equations. All right, so let's say you can copy these examples. Let's say 3, 2. Let's say 4, 1. Let's say 3, 6. Let's say negative 4, 5. Negative 2, 1, and 3, 7. And then the last one here would be 6, 4, 7, 2, 8, 2. Okay? So, the domain, you guys should know this from Algebra 1, is the x values. The range is the y values. Now, how do you tell whether it's a function or not? Okay? Now, this is how you tell something's not a function. If the x's repeat, that's how you know it's not. All other situations, it's yes. The other way you know something is not a function is if you had a graph like this and you made a line through it, that's the vertical line test. Okay? So since it passes through twice or more than once, this would also be not a function. We'll talk about that later. Okay? So the domain, very simply here, are these x values, x, x, and x. So that's be 3, 4, and I've already written 3. The range is 2, 1, and 6. Now, since the x's, okay, that's the y's, okay, since I have these two repeat, okay, as far as the function goes, this would be not a function, okay? On this one, this is the x, y, x, y, x, y. Okay, domain would be negative 4, -2 and 3. Range would be 5, 1, and 7. So this function would be a yes. Okay? All right, that function would be a yes. All right? Domain, range. Okay, so x, y, x, y, x, y. Okay? My domain is 6, 7, and 8. My range is 4 and 2. Now, some people get tripped up by this. Remember our rule. X is not repeating. Y's are okay. So as a function, this is a yes. Okay? That's an Algebra 1 concept. All right? All right, so I would like you to try this. I would like you to try these two examples. Okay, and what I want you to find in those is the domain, range, and is it a function? Domain, range, and is it a function? Okay, so pause the video. Okay, so the domain here, x, 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 y, y, y. That's going to be 4. I'm sorry, it's going to be 12, -3 and 5. This will be 4 and 9. This would be a function because I don't have the situation where the x's repeat. Okay? All right? And I did the same thing on this one. Okay? Try to trip you up a little bit. X, y, x, y, x, y. Okay? Domain would be 5, -8, and 10. Range would be 2 and 4. This is also a function, yes. Okay? Remember, the only time it's not a function is when the x's repeat. Okay? All right, and then moving on to these last example. Okay, we're going to talk about evaluating a piecewise function. Okay, so copy that down. You need to pause it. Okay. All right, so the idea behind this, we talk about this with evaluating later. The concept is that I would substitute this for x. Now, I have two equations here, and so that becomes the issue. Which one do I put them in, okay? Well, this is considered the x. So the question is 2 greater than 5 or is 2 less than or equal to 5? The 2 would be this one, because it's less than or equal to 5. So what I would do is just put the 2 in there, okay? So -2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 would be -3 for my answer, okay? F of 8, well, 8 is clearly greater than, all right, 5. So what I would do is I put that in, all right, and everybody should know about absolute value, okay? So the absolute value of 11 would just be 11. If that were negative, it turns into positive, okay? All right, so for whatever reason, let's say I had f of, well, it's going to be not going to work out on that one, but so that's the concept. If you have an absolute value, for instance, if I were to get an absolute value of -2, it would end up being 2, okay? So I think everybody remembers absolute value, okay? So very simple concept. I would like you to try this one. Okay? All right. And I would like you to do f of 1 and f of actually 4. Okay, so pause your video, see if you can figure that out. Okay, unpause. Okay? All right. So the question is which one do these go into? 1. Well, 1 would be less than 4. So 1 minus 7. Okay, so 1 minus 7 would be -6. Absolute value of -6 would just be +6. Okay? 4. So which one does that go into? Well, the only one, but this is greater than or equal to, so that means I'm going to put 4 for here. So 5 times 4 plus 2, that's going to be 20 plus 2, which is 22. Okay? All right, and so that's the first lesson on interval notation, some domain and range stuff, and evaluating a piecewise.